So you're halfway through cutting a timber frame and you feel like the chain mortiser is just not working well anymore. It's requiring a lot of effort to push it down through the wood. You're getting this very fine powder out. It's taking a long time. Your chain has gotten dull. What do? Well, when you buy a brand new 7104L chain mortiser from Makita, it comes with a little device that requires you to take the chain off, and then they actually recommend sharpening with a grinder. I'm always worried about using an electronic device like that because you can wreck your chain pretty quickly with a grinder by taking too much off or actually cutting the cutting edge right off. So what I like to do is sharpen the chain right on the machine, and I will tell you that it makes it perform like a brand new machine again. We have some very old Makita 7104Ls in our shop. A couple of years ago, we retired a chain that was approximately 20 years old, and we have just been sharpening and sharpening and sharpening as needed, but we like to use a hand file. A 3/16" hand file fits beautifully into the gullet of the tooth, so it doesn't alter the natural hook that a brand new chain has. And like I said, it just gets you back to a machine that feels brand new again, regardless of all of the other components. A very sharp chain cuts wood beautifully, and it gets you back into action. And it really takes about 10 minutes to hit every tooth, get it sharp, and then you can get right back to work. So it's worth learning this technique. There are just a couple things you need to keep in mind. What I like to do is loosen up the bar. It's a 17mm wrench, and there's a single bolt here on what I consider the front side of the tool. You can loosen that, and then directly above that bolt, there is a screw that you can twist. That allows you to tighten the chain. I like to get it tighter than I would normally have it during operation. That way it doesn't move around as I'm filing. And then I will release this lever and set the bar directly onto a suitable work surface so the chain doesn't rotate. And of course, the last thing you want to do is make sure that you're unplugged, because there is no trigger lock on these Makitas, so it would certainly be possible to bump that button and start this thing spinning. The other thing I like to do is mark the first tooth that I sharpen with a red Sharpie, because it's very obvious, very clear to see. And then I'm just going to start sharpening the teeth. Unlike a chainsaw, there is no angle to the gullet of the tooth, so you just need to hold that file dead perpendicular to the bar of the chain. And what I like to do is reach around, grab the back side of the file, and what I'm trying to do is just grind the leading edge of the tooth. This very fine point here and here, that's what actually does the cutting as you're working through the wood. So that's what I want to address with the file. I'm going to drop the file in here, and I'm going to apply a little bit of pressure this way to make sure that I'm hitting that cutting edge of the gullet rather than just pushing straight down on the file. And I'll rock back and forth to make sure that I'm sitting nice and flat in the tooth. And I find that 3 or 4 strokes is all I need to put on my cheaters. I want to make sure that the file is making good contact on this outer edge of the tooth. Sometimes I'll actually wear a headlamp while I'm sharpening just to make sure that I can clearly see. If you're sharpening in poor lighting conditions or your eyesight is not what it used to be, it's very difficult to get a sharp chain because we're trying to hit a particular element out here on the front of the tooth. Started with that one. I'm going to jump up to the next set of teeth, and again, make sure that the file is sitting flat in there. And I can see that the file is actually hitting all the way out. I like to do as few passes with the file as possible to get it sharp, to make sure that I'm hitting that outer edge of the tooth. That's what allows the chain to last perhaps 20 years. We're just taking off a tiny bit of steel every time we sharpen the tooth. But sometimes it takes more. If you were to hit something with the chain, you might find that you have a nick somewhere and you might need to file a little bit longer to get those teeth sharp. Unfortunately, it's a good idea to use the same number of passes on every set of teeth. So if you have 1 or 2 sets that are damaged and they require 8 or 9 or 10 passes with the file, you want to do the same thing to all of the other teeth to wear them evenly. That way, all of the teeth are contacting the wood in the same way with the same pressure as you're using the tool, and you'll get a much more uniform cut with the chain. If you sharpen one set of teeth more than the others, it makes that one set of teeth smaller, so then they will be underworked compared to the rest of the teeth. I basically reached the point where I can no longer access another tooth. On the last one that I sharpened in this pass, I'm gonna put a check mark. The tooth that I started with just gets a big blob of red. That way I know which tooth I need to hit next. Just elevate this. Note that with the chain very tight, the way I have it, it is difficult to rotate the chain. You want to be very careful because the movement of the chain when it's this tight can be a little jerky, and if your finger slips off and then grinds down the side of the tooth, makes for sort of a nasty cut. The other thing that I'm doing as I sharpen is rotating my file ever so slightly every time I move to the next tooth, just to make sure that I'm wearing out my file evenly. Okay, that's it. We made our way around, hit every tooth with 4 strokes, and we're good to go. When you're done, it's not a bad idea to blow all of this off if you have compressed air. You can see there are quite a bit of very fine steel shavings sitting on the wood. So you wouldn't want to do this on a timber that you're cutting for your timber frame, but it's also worth blowing out the chain to make sure you get rid of that abrasive material. We usually do an oil bath also at this point. So we bring over a little can with some oil in it, drop the chain and rotate it so the tip of the bar and all of the individual lengths of the chain get a good lubrication after sharpening. And then lastly, you want to loosen up the chain to the specs that Makita calls for. I believe it's about 3/16 of an inch of gap with a little bit of pressure to the side. So this is too tight the way it is right now, but I like to have it tight for the sharpening process. And again, don't forget to tighten up your bar after you've loosened it. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.